Okay, everybody, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Real quick, I'm Amanda Widener. I'm the horticulture specialist for Pueblo County CSU Extension Office. And joining me tonight is Courtney Nugent. She's one of our apprentice master gardeners, and she will be doing the main part of the presentation. I'm just going to get us started real quick. This is the Equal Opportunity Access and Non-Discrimination Statement that our university provides. If you need accommodations or want any extra information on this, please let us know and we're happy to provide it. As we get going, tonight's class is on pests and diseases. So those are huge topics, right? So we have narrowed them down, distilled them a little bit to be the most common ones or the ones that most of us deal with so that it makes more sense, it is more applicable for us. But we could probably teach a few semesters on this, really. All right, for anybody who doesn't know, All Pueblo Grows is a program supported by CSU Extension, Pueblo County Master Gardeners, and the Pueblo City County Library District. This is the program that provides the free seed libraries in our local branches, and it presents free classes on gardening topics throughout the growing season. So our mission and purpose of All Pueblo Grows is to grow a community of seed savers and successful food gardeners through education and free seed libraries. If you do want to get involved with this program, there's a few different ways you can do it. First and foremost is check out some seed packets. Like I said, we provided those to all the branches in our county here, and you're welcome to show up with a library card and check out up to 5 packets per visit. We often have vegetables as well as flower options. You can come to our monthly classes, which is where you're at tonight. So thank you for coming. We are planning those for the last Thursdays of the month from 6 to 7 p.m., and they'll cover a variety of topics. You are more than welcome to volunteer with us. That can look a lot of different ways. You do not have to be a master gardener to do so. Just go ahead and get in touch with me at widener@pueblocounty.us or just call the extension office and I can help you get started. So things that you could do would be like seed packing. We have to pack up a lot of those seeds. We can have you run the swap table, which is in the back where you're more than welcome to grab seeds. You can even do a presentation like Courtney is doing, outreach, fundraising, all sorts of things. And finally, you can utilize the seed swap table, which is, like I said back there, we'd like to set out a good variety of seeds for folks to take home with them. This is also your chance to donate seeds that you've grown and find something fun and new. As far as the seed swap table goes, you just kind of grab an envelope, unless there's something that's already prepackaged that you'd like to grab. But grab an envelope, pen, write out what you're grabbing that night. You're going to want to tape up the envelope with a sticker or a piece of tape because they will pop back open. But you can use the provided measuring spoon to take 1 scoop or less of the seed, put that in there. And then, of course, much of what's going to be available on the seed swap table will be homegrown. This means variability and fun because cross-pollination and hybridization. So it may not come out true to type, but you're going to get something fun and something that was grown nearby, which means it may be more likely to survive and thrive here in our climate and our spot. Finally, if you want to donate to the seed table, just talk to the person running the table for the day or any of us master gardeners or anybody else that is nearby. We can help you figure out how to do the intake for your seed. And also, if you want to visit our website, we have directions on there for anybody who's getting started for the first time on how to collect and then donate your seed.
And I think that's an upcoming talk too, isn't it? Later in the season?
We are going to have seed saving as well. Yep. I think that might be July's.
That's it. Okay.
All right, for today, we're going to go ahead and start off with the presentation. Courtney has let me know that she's interested in taking questions throughout. So if something occurs to you, as long as it's pertinent, please feel free to ask. Then at the end, we'll have a chance for any other questions, discussion, anything else that you'd like to talk about. And then, of course, you're encouraged to visit the seed swap table. All right, anybody who are master gardeners in the room, will you raise your hands? There's a few of them. There's a few. And then, like I said, tonight, our presenter is Courtney Nugent. And I'm going to let you take over. You've got yours, so.
Oh, you want me to cover the IPM stuff too? I'm more than happy to.
Yes, go ahead.
That's okay.
Totally fine.
Perfect. Right. Okay. I was just going to talk about pests, diseases, and issues, but I can cover IPM too because that's a large portion of what we're going to talk about related to our pests, diseases, and issues. Sounds okay, or just checking with recording? So I'm assuming the mic's okay? Okay, perfect. Great. So integrated pest management. I know a lot of us here are familiar with it. You in the back, we had talked about questions. So I very much prefer an interactive presentation. So if you want to ask any questions or open anything up for discussion, please do. Full disclosure, by no means am I a subject matter expert in any of this. That's why when I was asked to present on this, I said yes, because that's how you learn about things, is being forced to learn about things. So if I don't know the answer, you saw we have a whole host of master gardeners here. So if I can't answer it and they can't answer it, we'll all get together and find an answer for you. So if you guys have any questions, please. Okay, so integrated pest management. So really what this is you're incorporating a wide variety of strategies to combat diseases, pests, whatever the issue may be. And what this is going to be, it's going to be cultural, mechanical, biological, and chemical methods. So it's integrated because these techniques are going to be compatible with one another, and they're going to be compatible with the environment. The goal is to have reinforcing rather than competing effects. And the objectives include minimizing both pest damage and health environmental hazards while maintaining plant quality above a predetermined economic or aesthetic threshold. So, monetarily, is this, what can we tolerate in your yard? How ugly can this get before it's a problem? So if you go to any of the resources that are provided online, specifically the Colorado State Extension website, you're going to see this pyramid. And this is the pyramid of IPM tactics. So it goes from prevention to eradication. And along with that, it's going to go from least toxic to most toxic. So we start at the bottom with cultural. It's going to be site and plant selection, crop rotation. What can you do just in your daily habits to control any issues that you need to control? Physical and mechanical, that's going to be employing yourself as a worker. Hand weeding, putting out traps, mulching, some tilling, and any kind of physical barriers like netting or the crop toppers. Biological, they're going to be natural predators, parasitoids, and any diseases of the pests that you're trying to eradicate. And then we get to chemical, so that's going to be your pesticides, growth regulators, repellents, and any oils. And then at the top, we have conventional pesticides. So any questions on this or discussion? Okay.
Put her under the bus with that one. I did not realize that I had said that I was going to cover that.
Oh, no. Oh, please don't be. Oh, please. No. Whatever. Nothing if not adaptable. So, but now I'll return the favor. So these are great slides, but when these are put together, we always debate less information or more information. And so when you see these upcoming slides, it's a lot. So there's a lot of information on these, but because the wonderful library staff here will post this recording as well as keep this as a resource, we err on the side of more information because anyone who isn't here tonight can come and just see all of the information. So don't be overwhelmed when you see the slides. We'll talk through it, and they're to serve as reference. So, and as I said before, please, any questions or discussion as we go along is very welcome. Now for the pests, the way this is set up is we have 2 slides per pest. We're going to cover 5 pests tonight. And the first slide is going to be just a little bit of background and general information on the pest. And then the second is where we dive into the IPM and the control of these organisms. Okay, so our first pest, grasshoppers. And we were discussing this before most people came. Spring is starting earlier, and it's staying warm longer into the fall. So that means there's more food available, and when there's more food available for these grasshoppers, the grasshoppers are also going to be around longer. So they're coming out of dormancy earlier, and then they're sticking around longer. These insects are very difficult to control just because they're so mobile. We have over 100 species in Colorado, and their food habits vary. So as I think we all know, they'll eat anything. There's not a specific plant host for the grasshopper. Regarding your garden, they're going to have some things they prefer and things they avoid. So the vegetables they prefer are going to be lettuce, carrots, beans, sweet corn, and onions. And then they're going to avoid the squash, peas, and tomatoes. Grasshoppers lay eggs in soil, and you can see our photo on top. We have a nickel for reference to size, and then those are grasshopper eggs. And what they do is they lay the eggs in the soil, and most, there's always exceptions, but most grasshoppers are going to overwinter as eggs, and then come mid-spring, now, I'm sure most of you are seeing them, they hatch. So they say if it's colder and wetter in the spring, it's going to delay that. But I don't know. I feel like we've had a pretty cold and wet spring, and they don't feel delayed to me. So who knows? But they will live for months. Once they emerge, they eat, mate, and lay more eggs. And then generally it's in late summer when they're going to die out. Okay, how do we control these pests? So cultural control, you can plant trap crops. So we were talking about that a little bit earlier. What do they prefer and what do they avoid? Interestingly, Allison was saying how they didn't touch her garden last year, and all of her raised garden beds are cedar. And apparently they're selling some things on the market that smell like cedar that they don't seem to like. So who knows? I feel like because we're master gardeners, everything is research-based, but it's always nice to hear what others are using that's a bit more anecdotal. So you can plant trap crops, or you can change what you grow. Like we mentioned in the previous slide, there's some things they like and some things they don't. Regarding physical control, if you till up the soil a bit before winter, you're going to disturb those eggs, and you can reduce some of the numbers hatching. Obviously, you can always hand pick them off. You can use that insect mesh or row covers to protect your crops, but grasshoppers are pretty determined. So if they want to get at those crops, they're just going to chew through those row covers. Regarding biological controls, wild and domestic birds. So you have your chickens, your guinea fowl, and your turkeys. I know my mother has chickens, and it is amazing how many grasshoppers they eat in a day. So I can attest to that. They definitely can help control the grasshopper population. And then here, you can also employ your slightly bloodthirsty children. Regarding chemical and biological insecticides, so there's the carbaryl-based baits, the azadirachtin, and the diflubenzuron. So I looked up how to say all these, but I'm still going to butcher some of them, so bear with me. So these require continuous application, so you really have to be diligent. And you know, if you know you might not stick with it, apply them earlier rather than later. So if you're going to peter out, start early, because they are best used earlier in the season. On the right, we have a table including various insecticides that can be used to control grasshoppers. The first column has the common name, the second column is the trade name, and then the third column we have labeled uses and comments that may be helpful. So any questions regarding grasshoppers? Discussion? Concerns?
You know, when it says to kind of disturb the soil in the winter, just bringing the eggs up to the surface, is that enough to get rid of them, or?
Yeah, I don't know. Any other master
It
gardeners?
exposes them to the
Okay,
weather,
then that's enough
and
to-
that's enough. So
yeah.
as long as you go about an inch or so deep and give it a good turnover, then
Oh.
they say that should do.
Perfect. Yeah, because you know there's so many do this but not this, but then in other cases this is good and that's not good. So it sounds like high level tilling. So like don't dig it way up deep, but just like within the first couple inches is okay. Great. Good. Okay, our next insect or our next pest is going to be the Japanese beetle. So they arrived in Colorado in the early 1990s and they came on nursery stock. So I grew up in the mid 80s in Pennsylvania. And they were everywhere then. So apparently over the last 30 years, they have migrated west. I don't see them that often here, but obviously they are present. They do double damage. So they, both as the larval form, the middle photo there, those are the grubs, and that's the larval form of the Japanese beetle. So the grubs, what they do is they are in the soil and they're going to feed on your grass roots. And then the adults, they're going to chew on flowers and the leaves. And like the grasshoppers, they don't have specific hosts, so they will chew on a variety of plants. They have a one-year.
Chew on light-colored plants.
Oh, is that true? Yeah. Okay.
They don't chew like if you have roses, they'll only hitch like your white ones and your yellow ones.
Oh,
They
fascinating.
you won't find them on any darker colored. They don't like dark colored plants,
Huh.
so it's only on the light colored ones that you'll find them.
Oh,
Because
perfect.
they love mine. So.
This is good. When I have coffee with my mother, these are things we talk about. So that's why I'm taking notes. So thank you. That's good. So they have a one-year life cycle. The adults will emerge from the soil in early June. And if you do see these in your garden, so they'll be around early summer to early August. Each female will produce 40 to 60 eggs in this 4 to 6 week lifespan. And then the larvae, they'll feed on the grass roots until the soil temps are around 60 degrees, and then they burrow down deeper for winter. So then in the spring, they'll feed again for 4 to 6 weeks, they pupate, and then they emerge as the adults, as we said, in early June.
Yeah, I know a lot of the gardening lawn treatment people in town talk about grubs in your lawn. Is this the only kind of grub, or there are other kinds of grubs?
Yep, and we'll talk about those. And I think most of what I've seen, I kind of fell down rabbit holes as I tried to educate myself more about this and learn. But it sounds like the damage usually isn't that bad. But looking at lawns, a lot of times, you know, those spots, they seem kind of bad to me. And I'm assuming that's from the grubs. But, and again, maybe it depends on the type of grub or how healthy your lawn is and resilient. So, yeah. So, yeah, we're going to talk about some more and just. Okay. So how do we control these? So like I just said, you can make your lawn more resilient. And one way to do that is set your mower height higher. So a taller lawn is going to be a bit stronger. You can also incorporate the water fertilization and aeration, just increase that resiliency. Physical control, you can hand pick them off. Again, use the insect mesh or row covers to protect them. Traps are largely ineffective despite catching many adults. I don't know if anyone's ever used these, but growing up, we always had them in our yard. Are they still the yellow bags? You talk about just the most offensive thing you've ever seen. It's a huge bag of Japanese beetles. So I can't believe they're not effective because it was a huge bag of beetles. So I was like, it has to help, but. Well, and that does make sense. And they probably just do their damage and then, yeah, come to the trap.
I think they recommend that you place them away from your rose garden so that they're drawn to the trap and away from your roses. Don't put it in the rose garden because it just brings them all.
They'll eat and then go to the trap. So yeah, that's what I had imagined happening when I read that. So again, you have the biological controls as we had before, the wild and domesticated birds and children who are bored. Regarding biological and chemical insecticides, so there are certain ones you'll want to avoid, and you know, as we're taught, that's to keep the bees and other pollinators safe. So when you're reading labels, anything that has an active ingredient like carbaryl, bifenthrin, beta-cyfluorethrin, lambda-cyanohalothrin, permethrin, and imidacloprid. So if you see those on the label, avoid them. So, and this was one place where I kind of fell down the rabbit hole and was doing research. So there's this product from this company called Beetle Just, Beetle Gone. And they also make something called Grub Gone. So what it is, it's this bacteria and in a sprayable form. And it's supposed to really help with both the Grub Gone for the larval form and then the one listed here for the adult form. So that's something to try and probably the first recommendation. And then there's the other insecticides. So if we're looking at our pyramid, you know, the second one down, the less intense one. So they're less toxic to bees, but the con is they're going to persist for a shorter period of time. So that's going to be the pyrethrins, the azadirachtin, and the acetamiprid. So I almost always slip because I'm a farmer person.
I use just the grub killer that they sell like at Fox's and Home Depot and Lowe's. And I found last year, because I put grub killer in my gardens and on my grass, I had a lot less beetles last year than I did the year before.
Oh, interesting. So attacking at the right time and
so I've already put grub killer on my stuff, so we'll see.
Oh, good.
But I think I might have done it too late, so we'll see how that works. But it's just a over the counter type, and it says grub killer on the bag.
Yeah. So then obviously not pest specific, it just must be attacks the larval forms. So and we'll talk about that. I mean, here exactly what you say is appropriate, and it'll be mentioned in some other slides, but you know, it's just balancing that treatment versus when you harvest or you know, protecting. It's that fine balance, like how you said, I'm a little too late, and
I think I was too late,
but So any other comments or questions about Japanese beetles? Okay, next we have the squash bug. So these are a native pest. Yes, and they are apparently highly destructive. It's interesting. Like again, why I wanted to do this talk is I'm just not familiar with a lot of these because I've never had to deal with them. So yes, highly destructive squash bugs. So both the nymph and the adults, and in case I think most of us know, but so squash bugs go through incomplete metamorphosis. So this nymph is just an immature form of the adult, so some slight variations. But here, both the nymphs and the adults feed by sucking sap from the plant, so they're not chewing. They use their proboscis and suck out the sap from the plant. And when that happens, the plants are going to quickly wilt and die. So generally, they attack the leaves and the stems, but they can also feed on the fruits. And when we have mild winters, it means the squash bugs are going to be more abundant. So in winter, they are in the adult stage and they're burrowing under nearby debris. So leaves, sticks, that's what they'll be. They begin laying eggs in mid-June. They have distinctive copper-colored eggs. You can see that in the top photo. And they're generally laid on the other side of leaves. And I found this fascinating. They hatch within a week. So that'll be interesting when we get to the next slide on how you control them. So because these eggs hatch so quickly, they can have at least 2 generations per year. So then they'll develop as nymphs, and then they go through that. In nymphs, they're going to be green, progressing to gray, and then the darker bug you see on top there. So they congregate and hide near the base of plants. So in this case, mulch will be a problem because how we said they like to be under the debris. So if you mulch your plants, they're going to hide under there and be problematic. So the species most often affected are going to be hard winter squashes, like the pumpkin seen here, and then somewhat affected are the summer squash. Rarely affected are the cucumbers and melons. Okay, so how do we control these? Cultural control. Don't use mulch around your plants, again, because they hide under there. If they don't have that mulch to hide under, you can reduce them from congregating there. If you plant transplants instead of seeds, you'll give them a head start. So transplants over seeds. If you put boards between your rows of crops, again, because they like to hide under things, they'll go under those boards, and then you can walk on the boards and crush them. So it's also a physical control. And then as much as possible in your garden, implement crop rotation. Regarding physical control, you can hand pick the insects and the eggs, and again, the insect mesh or row covers to protect your crops. So here for biological control, they do have natural predators. So if you plant the flowers that the predators like, you'll bring them in, and then those predators can eat the squash bugs. So we have 2 of the predators shown here. They include the tachinid fly, parasitoid wasps, beetles, and spiders. So for chemical and biological insecticides, you can use diatomaceous earth or pyrethrin. If you put that around the base of the plant, it is effective, and both of those are allowed in organic production. So, with all these chemicals, I'm trying to slowly learn what they are. So pyrethrin, and correct me if I'm misspeaking in any way, so that's a solution made of chrysanthemum flowers. So it doesn't have a very long duration, but again, it's balance everything you need. It is safe for organics as well as edible foods. So insecticides with S-fenvalerate, permethrin, or carbaryl are, if they have those active ingredients, they're going to kill these squash bugs, but then you're also going to kill those natural enemies that you want around. So you want to apply early in the season. So as soon as you see those eggs, administer your first application. So generally that's in June. And since these eggs hatch within a week, plan your second application for a week or 2 later. Therefore, as these eggs are continually hatching, you'll catch them. So, and then again, as we were saying before, just always time this with harvest versus taking care of these pests. Any questions?
I found it very effective. You talk about them hiding under the mulch,
Yeah.
under the plants. I'll go out in the middle of the day and water the plant, okay? And when you hit it with water, they'll climb up the stem.
Oh.
Get dry.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's perfect. So when we talk about another pest, we employ water, but you can employ them for here too. Yeah. So make sure you plan an hour for watering then, right? It's not going to be quick. Yep.
I've never tried it, but handheld vacuum cleaner.
I would just
So
not want to
especially
tear my
looking at
leaves.
that
but-
pumpkin that we just
Yeah.
covered with. the
Yeah.
water.
Oh, God, yeah.
Effective.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like that pumpkin.
Right.
I know that. Oh, that makes me so sad as someone who loves pumpkins. Yes. Yeah. Perfect.
And then I'll hunt or search the bottoms of the leaves and then just take my pocket knife and cut a little hole and take the eggs off and smash them.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Oh, so you that's smashing. That's how you get rid of them. Okay.
Yeah, just crush the eggs.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's so fast. Yeah. Just fascinating.
They're not hard to find, but you gotta look under every single leaf.
I know. And this is like the more we go through all this, I'm like, wait, why do we garden? Like it's, why do we do this? No, because it's worth it. It's worth it. All right. The next pest we're going to talk about are flea beetles. So there's dozens of species of flea beetles found in Colorado, and there's going to be different flea beetles for different plant hosts. So some like the nightshade, some like cruciferous vegetables, and some introduced ones are attracted to leafy spurge. So they all overwinter as adults in protected sites, and they'll become active on warm days in early spring, and then they'll go find the plants. So you can see the flea beetle, and then these are plants that have been attacked by the flea beetle, and this is what we call this shot hole wounds. And obviously the name is appropriate because it looks like your leaf has many little bullet holes in it. So the larvae, most will develop in the soil and feed on the roots. So this is where, again, not just the Japanese beetles, but also flea beetles will have larvae that develop in the soil. And some larvae will develop on the leaves. So some variation here. If it's the soil kind, they'll produce 2 to 3 generations per year. As an example would be the cabbage and potato leaf beetles. The larvae that develop on the leaf, they only have 1 generation per year. An example of that is the apple flea beetle. So these flea beetles are also very mobile. So they can fly well and cover long distances. So they say the damage is usually under 30%. So it won't pose an overall risk to your plant. It's unlikely that your plant's going to die. But I think in cases where this is significant is going to be when you have ornamental plants. If you want to eat these greens and 30% are gone, they're cutting into 30% of your food source. And then these can be problematic for potatoes as well as sensitive seedlings. Okay, so to start on the right, this time what we have in this table is some of the common flea beetles that are found in Colorado. So the first column is going to contain the common name. The second column has the scientific names, and the third are host plants and any relevant comments. So for cultural control, again, if you plant transplants instead of seeds, you're going to give them a bit of a head start, and they should, hopefully it'll help. You can use trap crops for the flea beetles that are attracted to the cruciferous vegetables. Radishes and daikon can be used to attract them away from the crops that you want to eat. So in this case, thick mulches help. Floating row covers, again. And then here, just like you said, Mary, you can use sweep nets or portable vacuums to remove the insects. But then, like you said, Amanda, I'm like, how do you not suck up all your leaves? And maybe we just have too good a vacuum, so maybe you need them. Yeah, exactly. An old-fashioned one that isn't super powered. So don't use your Dyson here. So yes, but of course with the portable vacuums, it's something you're going to have to be doing frequently, continuously. So for biological controls, there are numerous natural enemies that will attack the larval stage. So again, like Peggy, maybe just go for the grubs and then you'll have less adults around. So the adults here are too mobile, and if you're going to try to employ biological controls, go for the grubs, not the adults. So for chemical and biological insecticides, diatomaceous earth again, and I'm assuming everyone knows what that is. If not, just we can talk about that. And then as a repellent, you can use the kaolin clays. So again, pyrethrins, talked about those. They'll last several hours. Then you'll have the cypermethrin and the cyanohalothrin. They'll last several days. And then as we work our way up that pyramid to the top point, the insecticides with longer persistence, again, will work best, but you got to balance them. So, and keep in mind, when you have your seedlings, you go out, you spray, but once all that new leaf comes, you're going to have to apply again because it's just going to be fresh food for them, and they'll need the protection, that the reapplication for protection. Okay, any questions on flea beetles? Or okay, this is our last pest, aphids. So this is, I've always found them a little creepy, but after learning about them for this presentation, I don't know, they're pretty fascinating to me, and I'll share my excitement in a few bullet points here. But yeah, so we have over 350 different species of aphids in Colorado, and they are the most common insects. You're going to find them trees, shrubs, garden ornamentals. So a lot of times you won't even know they're there. I think you will, because you seem pretty thorough. But I know I had a plant and I didn't realize for months that there were aphids on it. And I put it outside and the ladybugs took care of all of them. But yeah, so you may not even know they're there, and they very rarely cause injury to your plants. So they too are sapsuckers. So again, they're going to use that proboscis, and then they produce this honeydew, which is a gray sooty mold. And just the interconnectiveness of our environment is fascinating to me. So these aphids produce this honeydew that serves as food for ants, yellow jackets, flies, and beetles. These aphids come in all different kinds of colors: white, black, green, orange, yellow, and red. In the photos, you can see we have some green ones, some yellow, and then a red on top. So this is what enthralled me. So almost all females, so most of them are going to be females, and the way they work is early in the season, they're just going to reproduce asexually and create clones of themselves. So they're going to create identical daughters. So the females are giving live birth to genetically identical daughters. And they can create 3 to 5 per day. And then each of those aphids will live about 1 month. So it's not till the end of the season that they'll start to produce males. So then that's when they need to create the eggs. So then they'll create the males, they'll mate, and the eggs is what they overwinter as. So what they do is they lay the eggs in crevices around the buds and stems, and that way when the aphids emerge in spring, their food source is right there. So yeah, I just found that fascinating. Just creating a little mini army. So how do we control aphids? Cultural control, again, since they rarely do severe or much damage, just keep your plants healthy and resilient. Physical control, again, we're talking if your plants can take it. If you use hard sprays of water, you can knock those aphids off. Because, as we just said, they're going to lay their eggs around the little nodes and stems. If you cut back your perennials that had any aphid problems, so cut that off and don't compost it. Make sure you put it in the trash. If those eggs are gone, you're not going to get that reinfestation in spring. So for biological control, there's lots of bugs that eat aphids: ladybugs, green lacewings, ciphrid flies, as well as the parasitoid wasps. So for chemical and biological insecticides, the dormant season oil application. So essentially what you're doing is you're smothering those eggs. And then the non-persistent contact sprays. So I think we've heard of insecticidal soaps. Again, the pyrethrin show up, and they're both selective, and they're going to pose the minimal hazard to the beneficial insects again. So the persistent contact insecticide sprays, avoid the ones that are going to affect all your beneficial insects. The systemic insecticide sprays, the acetamiprid and imidacloprid, so they'll kill for days to a couple weeks after application. But as soon as your plants are flowering, or if they're about to flower, again, don't use these, because that's when the pollinators show up. So any questions on aphids or any of the pests we've talked about so far? Okay, so then we'll move on to our diseases and issues. So for these slides, we have one slide. Again, we're going to cover 5 diseases/issues. So diseases are going to be caused by a biotic organism, so a living organism, and then the issues are going to be some kind of physiological condition. So we have one slide per all 5 of these that we're going to discuss. So we're going to start with verticillium wilt. So this is caused by a fungus or a fungi. So there's 2 species. So I don't know if people are aware, but so the scientific names are going to be italicized, and it's genus and species. So here we have the Verticillium dahliae or the Verticillium alboatrum. So These are the two funguses, and they are not picky. They have a wide host range, and that will include weeds. So they affect the nightshade plants. That's going to be your pumpkins, melons, cucumbers, and some ornamentals. So what you're going to see when your plants get verticillium wilt is wilting, curling, and yellowing. So you can see we have a picture here. So that's how it starts, and usually on one side of the plant. And as it progresses, it's going to go from yellow to brown, and then you're going to have death. Your plants, they're going to look water stressed, and the vascular system turns a light brown. So this can be confused with fusarium wilt, but how we just said this is more of a yellow and brown coloring. The fusarium wilt is going to be pinkish brown. So these can survive indefinitely in the soil as microsclerotia. So what these are little fruiting bodies that have the spores in them. And so just doing some falling down the rabbit hole of fungi and these issues is, so this is a little fruiting body, and then they can eject the spores that are inside that fruiting body. So that'll be different in an upcoming disease. So those can survive indefinitely in the soil, and then you can also have the mycelium. So those are the strands of fungus, and they're more of in a vegetative form. So these fungi infect via the roots, or if you have damage at your stem near the soil line, they can also access your plant that way. So this disease is sudden and lethal. So, and this is, I like this. So if you're so close to harvesting your crop, if you can limp your plant along to that point, then, do that with extra water and fertilizer. There's no chemical cure. So you're just going to have to use cultural practices to avoid this. So crop rotation, solarization, dispose of your infected debris, again, trash, not compost, and decontaminate your garden tools. So side note, I don't know if everyone is an avid reader of the From the Ground Up newsletter. So I forget who it was, but I think it was winter season. There's a great article about how to decontaminate your garden tools. Because, you hear this stuff, you're like, well, how do I do that? Ethanol? So I encourage you to go look there if you want information on how to do that. I think it was Di. Thank you. Yep, I thought it was her. So yeah, great article there. And then also you can choose resistant varieties. So in the catalogs, it's going to be marked with the V, but any Google search will help you find species that are resilient to this verticillium. Like for tomatoes, I know it's the Better Boy and the Big Beef tomatoes are more resistant to this. So any questions? Any stories here? Have people had this in their garden? No? Okay, good. Must be doing something right. Okay, next we're going to discuss blossom end rot. So, and this is an abiotic disorder, so physiological, and it's caused by a calcium deficiency. So if your plant is growing and the demand for calcium exceeds what's available, then you're gonna witness this blossom end rot. So what happens is when there's not enough calcium, you'll have that characteristic, you can see in the photo there, it's a leathery brown to black area, and it's going to occur at the end of the fruit where the blossom was, and it's most commonly found in tomatoes, peppers, squash, eggplant, and watermelon. It's going to occur in the first fruit set of the season, and it's more common when the season starts out wet and then becomes dry as the fruit is setting. And generally the fruit is going to be half of its mature size when you see this blossom end rot. So what you want to do is pick and dispose of any affected fruits. Once the problem develops, quick fixes aren't readily available. So, and interestingly, our Colorado soils have enough calcium, but just because calcium's there, however it's pairing up, with other elements, other minerals, doesn't mean it's always available for the roots to take up. So really we're battling availability, not the presence of calcium. Although I know a lot of people who still crush up all their egg shells and put them in their gardens. So what you want to do is stabilize the moisture level as much as possible. So when those soils are smothered by water, they're not as able to uptake that calcium. So to even out moisture, I feel like everyone I know mulches their tomatoes with grass clippings. So that's the suggestion here. And then avoid any deep cultivation that's going to damage your roots. And then avoid excess nitrogen fertilizer. So what happens there is we're aware nitrogen results in plant growth. So it's going to be leaf, encourages leaf growth. And if you have too much leaf growth and there's not enough calcium, then you're going to get blossom end rot. So then based on all of that, I don't think it's going to be a big surprise. The factors leading up to the development of blossom end rot are going to be any sharp changes. And we live in Colorado, so I feel like every factor you're going to see here in these issue slides is, oh yeah, that's us, that's us. Exactly, I know, exactly. So sharp changes in temperature from cool to hot, drought stress, again, the waterlogged soils, so don't over irrigate. Obviously, too much rain, there's nothing that we can really do about that, but excessive growth due to the nitrogen we just talked about, so make sure you're fertilizing responsibly. And then again, don't induce root damage due to cultivation or disease. Any questions? Or I remember growing up, I would see this on tomatoes a lot, but I don't know if I see it so much anymore. But okay, so now we're back to another fungus or fungi. So I'm going to keep saying fungi, and I was curious because it says funguses. So I was like, which one is technically correct? So they are both correct, so you can use either, but funguses is usually less commonly used, and technically it's not standard. So fungi is, I guess, technically the correct plural of fungus. So early blight is caused by two fungi, the Alternaria solani or the Alternaria tomatophilia. So this is going to affect the tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, and peppers. And what's going to happen is it's going to start with these small brown spots. They progress to larger spots. There's going to be a white center, so it looks like a target. And then eventually you're going to have these tiny black fungal fruiting bodies. So then that's the fungus, those little fruiting, that's typical fungus, those little bodies. So you're immediately going to want to remove the infected lower leaves, wash your hands, and decontaminate. So don't spread it to other plants, don't spread it to other locations. So these fungi can overwinter on debris and in perennial weeds in the nightshade family. So here you're going to want to use mulch to reduce the splashback from soil and avoid overhead watering. So what happens is, that the water comes down and then it hits the soil and then you get that splash up. And what it's going to do is it's going to splash that fungus back up onto your plant. Again, crop rotation. There are resistant varieties to blight, and keep up your good cultural practices, appropriate watering, and make sure you're fertilizing at planting, flowering, and fruiting. So regarding a fungicide, if you want to try that, you should spray at the first sign of the spots. So if it progresses to the yellowing, the fungicides aren't going to be as effective. So use it as a preventative, not a treatment. So again, the factors that are going to lead to development of early blight: warm, wet conditions, that overhead irrigation, and lack of air circulation through and between plants. Because who here is not guilty of not following planting guidelines? I know. So this is the reason when it says 14 inches apart, don't cram them together. I still do, but okay. Any questions on early blight, or should I ask who here follows planting distance recommendations? Anyone? Anyone? I know, me too. Oh, and this year I've been so bad about thinning my garden. My radishes are like, ugh. But anyway, okay. So the next is another fungus. It's powdery mildew. So powdery mildew will affect all kinds of plants. So cereals, grasses, vegetables. You can see the huge list here. But they are host specific. So for each type of powdery mildew fungus, it's going to have a host plant that it prefers. But regardless, they all produce similar symptoms on the plant parts. So it's going to affect the bottom side of leaves, young stems, buds, flowers, and young fruit. And I feel like we've all seen this. It's the spots or patches of white to grayish talcum powder-like growth. So if you see the leaf in the photo, it just looks like someone sprinkled talcum powder all over it. So these powdery mildews produce, again, the mycelium. So these are the vegetative fungus threads, and they grow only on the surface of the plant. So they never actually invade the plant. They'll overwinter on debris and I need to, hang on, because I have trouble saying this one, on Cleistothecium, or in this case, Cleistothecea. And so what this is another vegetative fruiting body, but it does not have a way to expel the spores. So it's a solid body, and the way the spores are eventually released is at the end of the season when everything starts to decompose, the fruiting body decomposes, and that's when the spores are released. So overwinter, early spring, when that decomposition happens. So they're going to overwinter in these little fruiting bodies, or again as that vegetative thread called mycelium. So as I said, in the spring, these spores are going to emerge when the fruiting body decomposes, and then they're going to be moved to new host tissues, again by the splashing raindrops being splashed up onto your plants, and then they can also be transported by wind or insects. Again, dispose of all your infected debris, trash, not compost. So many plants have been developed to be resistant to powdery mildew, so Google search will help you there. If you're going to use chemicals, they're most effective when you combine them with cultural controls. So here, baking soda with horticultural oils, fungicides, again, pruning for air movement, and don't plant in low shady areas where it's going to be wet. So then again, factors leading to the development of powdery mildew: warm, dry conditions, overhead irrigation, in conflict, dry conditions, but then the relative air humidity, and again, the lack of air circulation through and between plants. Any questions or comments on powdery mildew? Okay. All right, and this brings us to our last disease. So I think everyone, well, I shouldn't say that. If you can remember back to school biology, so fire blight is a bacterial disease. So up until now, we had the physiological disorder from calcium deficiency or fungi. So in this case, this is a bacterial disease. So by knowing what the pathogen is will really help you in your treatment. So obviously with funguses, you can use fungicides. Bacteria, it's going to be an antibiotic. So it's helpful to know what causes these issues. So fire blight is a bacterial disease that affects plants in the Rosaceae family. So it's caused specifically by the bacterium Erwinia amylivora. And it's, again, I feel like it's a huge shrouded mystery because it's, the disease incidence is going to vary from year to year. The severity is going to be influenced by how susceptible your plant is, meteorological conditions, again, Colorado, development of tissues, and just the overall condition of your tree. So this bacteria will overwinter in blighted branches. So blighted branches, if you're not familiar with what blight is, so that top picture is just like wilted browning branches. And then on the edge of cankers. And cankers are those sunken areas in trees that are often oozing and they're a darker color. So that's a canker. And that's where those bacteria are going to hang out over the winter. So in spring, it's going to create, this bacteria is going to create this sweet gummy ooze, and the insects love it, so they come and then they carry it away to other plants, and this too can be spread by wind and rain. So no surprise, if the insects are coming and landing on it, they're going to infect other trees through the nectar, any openings in leaves and branches, and wounds. So you can see the pictures. Your plant's going to look water-soaked, brown flowers, wilted browning leaves, darkening twigs. Stuff's going to ooze and just stay attached to the tree and leaves too long. Shepherd's crook, so essentially that's going to be a healthy branch, and then the end is going to look like a shepherd's crook, like a cane, but that part's going to be all brown. And then again, we mentioned the cankers, that dark discolored sunken in area. So there's no cure. You need to prevent this. So trees are going to work with you. They're going to try to seal off any place they have infection or wounds where they could be infected. So they'll be working to do that. And then you too, when it comes time to prune in February, if you can, try to prune out areas that you have this blight. They do have plant-resistant species, and really just keep your tree well watered and cared for. Regarding any sprays, so enlist the professionals. If you're going to use chemical treatments, these are going to suppress the bacteria, but they won't kill it. So as I think we're all aware, antibiotics kill bacteria, but even in this case, antibiotics are going to be more of a prevention, and they have to be applied by licensed pesticide applicator. So again, we have our factors leading up to blight. So choose your species carefully. You know, we always say right plant at the right place at the right time. So choose carefully. Warm, rainy springs, wind-driven rain, and wind and hail events. So everything Colorado helps the blight. So that is our last issue. Any questions on fire blight or anything we've discussed? Okay.